All right, thank you guys for joining in this live stream. And today, as you guys have waited for a very long time, or a couple of days, is we have with us Daniel, who is the CTO of Reflectly. So this topic is about what makes a great Flutter developer. So let me introduce you a little bit on Daniel. So Daniel, he's from Copenhagen and he has 8 years of startup and software engineering experience. So you guys might want to ask some questions, but not too technical related. I might be able to answer more of that. Then he's the founder and CTO of Reflectly. And if you guys don't know what is Reflectly, Reflectly is a journaling app that you can just pen down your thoughts in your app, and then it asks you questions on a daily basis, and it has over 1 million downloads. So you can also ask how they are able to get millions of downloads in Reflectly. And then they also win some awards like the Material Design Award, if I'm not wrong, in 2019. So can you guys give a virtual clap? Welcome, Daniel. Yay! Thank you, Daniel, for
Thank you for
joining
having me.
us. Right. So in this live stream, we'll be talking about three topics, and I think a lot of Flutter developers, especially who have joined Flutter or learned Flutter this year, will probably want to know what to do before they are getting a Flutter job, and then what to expect in a job interview. Because I think from the channel or from where I've seen so far, a lot of people are looking for a Flutter job. And lastly, I think this is, I guess, an overlooked topic where what are the qualities that you look for as a coworker? Because getting a job is good, but I think maintaining your co-worker relationships with each other, I think it's also more important. All right, so let's get started with the first topic, which is the pre-job. So now, Daniel, thank you for joining us. All right, so I guess like a lot of like developers are wondering. So I have a couple of questions, right? And my first favorite question to ask is that, is a computer science related degree important in getting a Flutter job in your experience?
First of all, thank you for having me, Harris. It's great to be here. I would say, based on our own experience, no, it's not. I mean, it gives you a good foundation, but in this day and time, there's a lot of good options also to have the same kind of foundation, especially internet-based services such as Udemy, Coursera. All of these services give you a solid foundation that you might as well, be getting at university. So we no longer look at the degree as something that people must have in order to get a job in any way. It's pretty much based on um, your skills. So how likable are you? Are you do you know what you're doing? Do you have anything to show us? Like the best way to get into Reflectly is showing your work. So if you have a great portfolio of apps you've done before that have like high code quality, and I think that's really a way to sort of leverage the, yeah, the new world of education.
Yeah. So I guess like how I guess I asked Daniel, or how I got to know more about Daniel, is that he actually messaged me, and he asked like, I mean, he said that about my neuromorphic post where I actually added a MIT license because someone requested, and then I just posted it on like LinkedIn. So I guess it is consistent to what you say, is that show your work, because I do believe that like if you show your work, I think it's more credible than having a technical degree. Even though, like you said earlier, like technical degree give you a base, but I think the application, I think it's more, um, I would say, more appeal to the people who are looking for Flutter developers, right? So at the same time, you are talking about Coursera and those like platforms that teaches you Flutter. So what if someone come up to you without a degree, and then someone says that, oh, I have different certificates that I learned through, for example, Coursera. Do you think it's a good way to judge someone's technical skills?
I wouldn't use the course to judge somebody's technical skill. To be honest, I would much rather have the person on a call. First of all, figure out, is this person, likable? That's like literally the first thing you look for. Is this somebody you want to work together with? And then we can go into details such as, do you have, sample of code that you can show for? And of course, I mean, this depends on what kind of skill set or skill level you're at. If you're a junior, okay, maybe you don't actually have a whole lot to show for. And in that case, I don't, expect to see a whole lot of code. But if you're more senior, if you're well known, if you've done other projects, even other companies, that is really the best way to sort of showcase yourself and what you're able to do. The courses and so on, I mean, that's only for your own benefit, so to speak, because it's also about your effort. Like, how much effort do you put into a course? I can't tell really by just looking at a piece of paper. What I can tell is, if somebody is showcasing their work and it's good, well, then it's definitively, somebody who knows what they're doing.
Right. So I do agree on that, because I guess a lot of us, especially during this COVID period, right? There's some time for us to upgrade ourselves. So sometimes we go to, go through certificates and courses. But at the same time, I think application wise is something that I think can showcase, like through your source code, your source projects, right? So for me, because I didn't come through what they call a typical, I was a psychology student. And then after that, I just transitioned to tech because that's where the money is, honestly. So, and then I found Flutter. So I guess yeah. So I think the application, and also you talk about likability. So I would say that is more towards like soft skills. So it might be a strange question to ask, but how do you practice your soft skills?
That's a good question. I mean, work with others, work together with others, like that, get as much exposure as possible. And, you can also, it benefits not only you as a person, but it also benefits your code. If you think in a social setting rather than for your, own explorations, it's, the code also becomes better. If you, realize that code is read way more than it's written, it becomes, really important to also understand how to then write it in a way that others will approve of. And, that is part of the deal of working in a team. You can be the best
Yes.
developer, but if you can't work together with others, you're not going to get particularly far.
Yeah.
That's the honest truth.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. For my past experience working with other people, I would say readable code is actually very important, because I think it also helps with other people's I would say soft skills, or not per se soft skills, but I would say communication. Because as developers, we probably yes, like we communicate more through the code than, because I guess like if we understand somebody's code, we probably know that this person has actually a lot of experience working with other people, which I think a lot of us, especially developers now, what do you call that, overlooked, because most of the time when people learn coding, it is actually for themselves, which is fine. But I think what really makes it a little bit better would be working with other people online as well. So I think with this experience, for example, working with other people, and then also garnering experience through their own courses and projects, right? And then there comes to the next part, which is actually trying to create a resume. So I think I helped with Daniel in coming up with a simple, what do you call this, Google form that collates all of the resumes. And I think you have tons of resumes that you've seen so far. So what is, maybe you can say 3 things that makes a resume stand out?
Will stand out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Because, yeah.
First, I think it's so to stand out, it's one page only, no more than one page. Really important.
One page, yes.
One page only, and then make it very clear where I can see the code. So if you have a GitHub link or a GitHub address visible on the first page, that will lead me the right direction really quickly, because that is pretty much the first thing I look at, to be honest. Like, that is where I go. And then I take another look at the resume afterwards, and I see where the person is coming from, what the background is. But you know, the background, it's good to know to establish, an understanding of what the skill level of the person is. But it's also, not something that we can necessarily use for much in the company itself, because we also want to sort of, evolve this person. So it's only a question about establishing where is this person in their career, and how can we, potentially find a good spot for them to also, further develop their career. Um, Actually making it very polished and so on. And yeah, of course, grammar is important to make sure that stuff like that is in order. Make sure that the layout is good. But again, the faster I find the GitHub link, the better it is.
Right.
I
So
think
guys, if you really want to get a job, GitHub link, guys, put it on the first line.
put it on the first line, and a lot of people don't put it in their resume. And I know that it's probably because it's kind of a unusual thing in other industries, but I would highly recommend to do that if you have something to show for, of course. And it again, it doesn't matter if you have you know not perfect code on your GitHub. Um, the real objective for me in that case is to establish what kind of skill level is this person at, because that is very difficult to determine. And there's space for everyone at Reflectly. We're looking for both juniors and seniors and so on, but we need to put them in the right role. So either we figure out through GitHub firsthand, or we hire the person on a trial period to figure it out, which is sometimes necessary in order to sort of kind of get to
Right.
the results.
All right. So, like in summary, what you said is, first of all, one page, which I agree. One page, I think more than one page is a lot. And second of all, put your GitHub link, so that I think in terms of judging someone's code and what do you call it, projects, that's really helpful. And the third one, if I'm not wrong, is putting your experience and what is, I would say, related to the job role in a nicely layout form that's readable, right? So at the same
Yeah, I
time, you
mean,
are also, yeah.
yeah, I think if you wanted to make it easier for me to understand who you are as a person at that point in time, tell us what your skill level is in, let's say, Flutter. So I feel like I am very good at Flutter, and then scale from, let's say, 0 to 10, and you put it at 8 because you feel like you're really great. That sort of also establishes an understanding that you want to become still better at it. You're not an expert yet, or I'm an expert at this, and I'm looking for the opportunities and other things to work on, or I want to become even better. So
Right.
I think that's the more. This is kind of like if you have a good app, it feels nice to interact with. It looks good, the navigation is great, all of these things. So if you think about the layout of the resume, it should be easily consumable for somebody reading a lot of resumes. This is
Right.
kind of similar to what you do in university, where the professor will say no more than 5 pages. I don't have time for anymore. So
Yes,
is
yes.
good, So
Correct.
quality over everything else in that
Quantity.
case.
Yeah. There's this saying, less is more, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, and I think what you pointed out, it's really important as well. But there is this thing that you said about, like, you judge yourself according to from 0 to 10, right? So 8 to 10 in terms of like your Flutter skills. So you have that like extra two. That means you perceive that this person wants to what do you call that? Wants to improve themselves. So there is a lot of debate on this like rating system by yourself, because sometimes people think they are very good, but in actual fact they might not be good. So I think there's a lot of like debate on this. So correct me if I'm wrong. If you say that putting the ratings is okay, so, but for some developers, they think this is not an accurate description on their skills. But at the same time, I would say that there is no actual like quiz or exams or standard test that allows you to judge
No,
your skills. So
I think the goal is, again, also like a lot of people have a tendency to put in things that don't really matter anymore. So especially if they're senior people, they've done a lot of, let's say, stammering or whatever, and maybe they don't want to be doing that anymore, but they still put it into this chart of their skills, and that is kind of irrelevant. I think it's more important what people are looking for at this point in time. So maybe small curl on that. Yes, it's fine that it's a subjective opinion, but it's also an opportunity for you to say what it is you want to be working on and where you want to improve your skill set. I don't need somebody to write CSS.
right.
I need
Okay.
somebody who's
That
right.
makes sense.
So look at what it is you want to be doing, because if you get a job and you're doing something you don't want to be doing, you're probably in the wrong job. You have a lot of opportunity as a developer in this world. So
right.
it's kind of about, as with everything, when you're trying to look for a job, it's about your communication and finding the right match. Like, we can also have overqualified people, and then I tell them, okay, this is probably not the right place for you. You're gonna be either bored or whatever. So it's about determining whether or not somebody will be a good fit, and in that sort of conversation, you also need to establish what the other person is looking for amongst the ocean of other developers. And I think to us, it matters a lot that people have this, genuine interest in Flutter, that they're not just picking it up because it's a good framework and it's becoming popular, but it's something that they really want to become good at, maybe even make into their, career thing, something that they're going to be known as experts for. That matters tremendously, like so much. So if they put in, they say they're average at Flutter, but they really want to improve on this, but they're geniuses at CSS. I don't know which one I'm supposed to be looking at. So in that sense, we have to rank. So the more easily consumable, for me to understand what kind of person you are, the better it is. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for improvement in that area, especially as a developer, because things are pretty.
It's always changing. Yeah.
It's changing it, but it's yet still it's easily describable, unlike people working in other areas of the company.
Right.
So I think it's a good chance to also get a good resume put together.
Right. So basically, what you're trying to say is to make it consumable in a way that put it to what is required. So, like, for example, this job doesn't require HTML, CSS. Don't put it there. Just put what you have. You think that you are confident in, or what's your skill level, right? Like novice or expert or intermediate. And then you said a little bit about passion, right? So that's actually a question I wanted to ask. So you said that passion makes someone, for example, someone who's passionate in Flutter, most likely want to have a career to be a Flutter developer, right? So what if someone is not as passionate, but they are like, what do you call that? They are intermediate in terms of their Flutter skills, but they are like open to what do you call that, other opportunities in a way. So do you think this will be a good fit to your company, or is it something that you have to decide or weigh on? Yeah.
I would like to know what the other person is looking for them. So I don't mind that somebody does not see themselves as a lifetime Flutter career kind of person. But in that case, what are they actually looking for? Like, what is it they're thinking? Where do they want to go? Do they want to become project managers, or do they want to do different kind of code? I mean, it's quite clear that we are mostly looking for Flutter developers, because what we do is Flutter apps. But obviously there are other things they can do, but there's a limit to sort of the scope that we can hire people for. So it's about establishing clear lines about what are we working within. But there's more to it than just
Right.
the code. Lots of people want to become, uh, project managers and have a sort of a managerial role in the long run, and that makes sense too. But in that case, it's also good to sort of be open about it. And this is something that I know that the bigger companies are doing as well. So they either they support you either way. So either you can become a really excellent engineer and keep going down that road, or you can become somebody who's managing the process. And they also support that, and people can jump in between the two. But for some people, they just want to do code every day, and they become really great at it. Uh, some others, they want to do the other thing, and I think we can support both roles. But again, we need to have an honest conversation about what somebody would want to do, and it's also something that they don't need to know up front. Maybe they just want to get going now because they're early in their career and don't really know what to do yet, and that's fine as well. That's something we can get an understanding of down the road.
Right. So I guess it's okay that you might not be super passionate, I would say, but at least you can help them in terms of what they want, because I guess um, it's better to help people in their journey in their career as well, right? So I guess like with that said, right, then you pick someone that's a potential candidate for a job in your company. So then it comes to the interview part, right, of seeking a job. So what are the three things that you think are not to do in an interview? So what are like your three pet peeves, I would say, during an interview? And do you conduct virtual interviews, or I think it's
So
in this
yeah,
COVID period, yeah,
let,
virtual interviews, yeah.
let's clear that up. We're a remote company, so we don't have an office or anything like that. At least
Oh,
not a static one.
right,
So people
nice,
can, we mostly hire for people that are close to European time zones because that's where most of the team is. But it is pretty open. We don't expect people to go into an office anymore. Yeah, it is a virtual interview, and I would say it's nothing like a Google interview. It's so the first part of it is essentially get in touch. We would like to see resumes before we jump on a call. We would like to see code before we jump on a call, and if those things look good and we want to know who this person is, we set up a meet and greet call. Um, and the primary goal in that call is essentially to understand what kind of person this is, and
mm,
what they're like. Um, Something that's also fairly important, but unfortunately kind of a problem sometimes is the level of English. A lot of people are great
right,
engineers or developers, but their English skills are just not there. And above all else, you need to be able to communicate with the people on the team.
yeah,
So unfortunately, a lot of people do end up not going any further than that call because we will not be able to have a productive conversation going forward. So do invest in your English skills if you're not native speaker. That is quite important. So that's the first thing we sort of look for when we jump on a call with people. And then then it's more a question about, again, likability. Is this person completely unemotional? Then we're gonna have a hard time going
yeah,
forward because I mean that person might still be very skillful and they might be better fit for a bigger company where their impact is not going to be as profound. We're a small
right,
team,
yeah,
so we do like have a lot of conversation going on between each other. And if somebody's not really passionate or invested in making a difference, it's quite hard to sort of justify their place in the company. So
mm,
don't be unemotional. Try to be a likable person that wants to engage, wants to really make a difference. Even even yeah, don't be shy, so to speak. That's important. Be a part of the team. That's be a team player. That's the thing you should aim for in this case. And then we jump off that call, and then we have internal discussion about the potential for this person. We also use the call to sort of establish if the alignment is right. Like, is the role right for this person? Is this something they would like to do? Are they gonna be a good ambassador of Reflectly in the world, or are they just gonna be thinking this is another job? So if they're there only to find a job, I'm not saying they wouldn't get the job, but they like the person who comes in and says, "I really love this app. I have some ideas that we could implement," is probably gonna get the job rather than the one not saying that. So feel like you're trying to become part of the company before you're actually a part of it. Like, how would you make a difference in this company, even if you don't know the internals? Because we have a lot of things that we need to do or could do that we're unaware of, or like we don't have the capacity to do, or things of that nature. And then it's really nice to have somebody coming on board saying, "I really think we can make an impact, do something here, make it for the better." So those are probably the three qualities we look at first in the sort of initial interview. We don't have any kind of code quizzes or things like that. That's something that will be sort of pre-screened by people providing their code. We usually don't really hire people that are that don't show code up front. That is the honest truth, because there has been exceptions, but in that case, the person coming on board is very junior and there to see if they can get up to speed in the trial period. So that is an opportunity, but usually the people that do go on from that interview into a regular role, they have shown code they've done previously. So those are the three sort of obstacles to get past in the first interview.
Right. So let me summarize everything that you said so far. So the first one, I think, which I agree as well, is the language English, right? So I think communication is really key, especially as a remote team. So if you can't communicate in English, in proper English, then I think it will be a difficult fit to the team. Then secondly is secondly, I got it on my head. Okay, I forgot. So secondly is that emotional. So basically, I guess EQ, right? Emotional maturity, I would say.
Be likable.
So I guess likability, right? So I guess it's subjective, but I think if you're average Joe, I think that's possible. But I think so be likable. I think make yourself interesting. I think that's one thing that you can make yourself increase in the likability of a person, because interesting people are just more likable because it's interesting. People are curious about interesting stuff. And then lastly, I guess what you said earlier is passion about the company, which I really think that that will help not only the person who is applying, but the company itself. Because like if the person really likes Reflectly, they probably have a lot of things that they want to say about Reflectly as well. And then I actually looked through your job description. You actually had a thing at the bottom of the page that says, can you include what is to be improved, or what are your thoughts in the Reflectly as well? Yeah. And like you said earlier, you don't have to know about like the back end of the app. It's like having interest by telling some improvements, or even I would say some criticism. I think are you guys open to criticism? Yeah,
absolutely.
So I think I think when someone criticized not in a negative way, but in a professional way, I think that in your mind, you're probably okay. This person is probably very interested or very invested in Reflectly or the company itself. So that's the three key takeaways. So let me pose you like a hypothetical situation. So this person might not be a developer, but this person is really passionate about Reflectly. So like he or she does not know code that much, maybe a little bit of like coding experience in HTML and CSS and whatnot. So, but this person relentlessly applies for any type of job in Reflectly. So do you accept this person?
Oh, it's a good question. Again, we would have to figure out what the person would be doing. The thing is,
Right.
we're not big on having people that are not making an impact. Like we
Okay.
do really try to make because they're correlated. The well-being of the person and if they're having an impact. If they're not having an
Mm,
impact, it doesn't make sense for them to be at the company. That's the
right.
honest truth. But of course, if somebody is so eager that they are willing to do almost anything to get a job, obviously we would see if there would be an opportunity for them to be at Reflectly. So I'm not going to rule it out, but I think it's very subject to
Right.
the personality of that person, like and why they're so
Definitely.
eager to become part of the team. But
Right.
again, we're not trying to build a company where people just um, you know go in the job and actually don't like being there. So it is
Mm,
important to us to feel like they're having an impact. And sometimes
mm,
that sort of feeling also it disappears. That is the honest truth. Sometimes
yeah.
the company changes. That is
Yep.
what happens, and then people they leave. And I think this is probably, to be honest, for the better,
Mm,
compared to at least what the older generation would do in staying at the company for 10, 20, 30, however many
right.
years.
Yeah.
People nowadays have the opportunity to jump between companies and try different things, and I think that's good because that will probably make them happier over time. They will have more experiences to look back at and learn from. So yeah, I wouldn't say no to somebody if they're really into it, but I also would be consistently evaluating whether or not the person feels like they're at home at Reflectly.
Yeah. So I guess like what you brought up is pretty important. Like you might be interested in a company like Reflectly, but at the same time, you're also looking for something that the person can help impact in the company as well. Because yeah, someone might be very interested but might not have the skills that is able to help or impact in Reflectly or through the Reflectly app or through the mission that you guys are going towards to. Right.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, I think at the same time, I would also say that what you brought up is also is true, which is the passion. Sometimes it just dies out, like myself, like when I was working right as a Flutter developer in my previous in the previous company that I worked for, like just the passion that just dies out, and it's okay. And like what you said, it's true that I think for younger people like us, maybe not for yourself, but younger people like me or these millennials or whatever, they tend to jump from job to job, which is okay. Like that's the current trend for a lot of people nowadays as well. So generally, this is just I'm just curious, like how what's the average age in your company?
It's quite low. I am 30, and I would say the average age is probably, 28 or something like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like we're all young. That's all millennials, if you may say so. Um, some are even in the next generation, but it is like we're a young company for sure. That's yeah how it is. We're three founders with
Right.
1 year between us, so 28,
Mm,
29, and 30. So
right.
yeah, it's a pretty young company. So I mean, and I think that's also kind of why we have a remote company and not an office company. Because
Mm,
we also would we are working at Reflectly on for a long time, so we would also like to be able to move around. So I think we share that that sort of passion that you need to have changes coming in once in a while. You can't just stay to the same pattern for years and years with no end.
Right, right. So I guess that's the beauty of, I would say, a small company, because I think changes can happen really fast. And at the same time, why I asked about the age question is because back in the company that I work for, yeah, most of my colleagues were actually young, like 2-3 years apart. It's not that old. But we had some hires. I mean, I had colleagues that were older, like 20, 10 years older than most of us. So I think,
Mhm.
I don't know if you agree, but do you think age really helps in terms of the culture that you have in your company?
Oh yeah, I do. And I also think we do have a high pace compared to a lot of other companies. Like we don't like doing very long projects. Like, and we like
Mm,
doing short release cycles. We
mm,
like, getting a move on, seeing results. If something isn't working out, either you leave it be or you change it so that it works, but you do it on a short leash, so to speak. We're not particularly big on moving slow, so to speak. Like we don't do half yearly
mm,
releases, things like that. So I
right.
think that is probably partly due to age. I think the younger you are, the quicker you move. So
Yeah.
so that is part of the company's DNA.
Right.
That,
I
that
would say
for
not
sure.
quicker you move, but more impatient. I realize when you're young, you're a little bit more impatient, which is good. Which is good. It's good and bad in a way. Impatient for results. So you guys want have quick iterations rather than long processes, which I think I personally also don't like as well. So I
Yeah.
guess yeah, age I think helps because I guess you guys can vibe. You guys can vibe. You guys can talk
Oh yeah.
uh, can talk about the topics that
Everyone,
like you can
pretty much
relate, right?
everyone
Yeah.
is the same age, so you have sort of the same situation going on. It is,
Right.
and the thing is also you end up spending a lot of time working on Reflectly, to be honest. Like at least we founders do, and a lot of the employees seem to do the same because they're passionate. So you also want to be in a place where uh, that is, you're able to talk to others. It's not going to feel awkward. So I think that is, yeah, probably a good thing that we're somewhat young in what we do.
Right. Yeah. I guess like when you're talking to people older than you might have that, I would say, that hierarchical kind of like vibe towards like respecting the people who are older than you. When if you have around the same age, you guys can vibe even. It's easier to vibe than people who are older than us or people around you. I totally get it. Yeah. Unless the old people are also young at heart, so I think that's great as well. Yeah.
I, I mean, the beauty of old people is that they have a lot of more experience, so you can also learn a lot from them.
Mm,
So I wouldn't
yeah.
exclude their sort of input, but yeah, on a day-to-day basis, it's probably quite nice that we're not necessarily that old, or there's not a huge age gap in between people working at Reflection. That I think is a good thing, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. So now we are going to move on to questions that has been asked by some of the people that have commented in this live stream, and as well as the post that I've released in my social media channels. All right. So I guess let me go with the first one. At Reflexly, how do you evaluate a Flutter engineer's performance and how frequently? So this is like when you are already hired in Reflectly. So do you guys do performance reviews, and how often do you do it, if so?
So this is something that we're discussing individually with each person because some people are more eager to have feedback and others are more reluctant to have feedback. I would say it's like probably a monthly thing. We go in and we talk to them about what it is they're going through, and often it's not necessarily that much about the actual output of the work they're doing, but much more so about how they're feeling at home and working at Reflectly, because we want to make sure that the person does actually, are able to channel out whatever they're thinking to us on a regular schedule.
Right.
Because in everyday work, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to do so, especially not if you're a remote worker, which is not coming into the office. So in terms of performance, again, it's not like we're sitting down every month and saying, okay, you did 10 tickets this month. That does seem really,
Right.
lax. That's not the kind of thing we're doing.
Right.
It's basically more of a catch up on how are you doing, and
Yeah.
we continuously ask people also if they need, if we do see degrading performance in what people are doing, we do ask them, do you want to jump on a call also outside of these sort of scheduled calls to figure out what is going on. But in terms of improvement, I mean, recently, because we have a couple of sort of newcomers that are not experts in Flutter and trying to get into the whole Flutter deal, we've started doing what I call code sessions. So bi-weekly, we jump on a call. There might be questions about, how do I do this the best way possible? Or it might be a, theme thing about today we're going to be looking at what the provider package can do for us. Or it might be, well, how do you implement equality in Dart objects, or something that makes sense because they're working on something where they kind of need to know that. So I think it's an ongoing effort, and I think it's quite hard to also sort of sit down and say, I mean, if you do Scrum releases, Scrum sprints, you can do this kind of thing, but that's not the kind of pattern we're following at Reflectly. It's way more fluid. We have things that need to be done, and then of course a lot of things that needs to be done sort of on the sidelines, things that need to be fixed or improved, but they don't follow this kind of sprint pattern per se. We catch up a couple of times per week, in the beginning of the week and the end of the week, where we sort of discuss what are we doing this week and what we're doing for the week and where are we at, just to coordinate. But it's quite limited in terms of actual output performance metrics. That's sort of hard for us to sort of measure.
I totally get it. So I guess you guys do like monthly, what do you call that, one-on-ones with your colleagues, and I would say that from experience, there isn't a way for you to really like judge someone's performance in a way, because every situation is very different. Some features might need a lot of help, some features might not need a lot of help. So it's like there isn't. So I guess like that what you're doing is good, like to catch up on what they're thinking throughout the whole month. And then you guys also do some sort of stand up where every week you guys say about what you have done and such, right? So I think that's a thing that will really help in terms of like people might be able to help in one a thing that you are doing and such. So I guess this comes with experience when you're working. So for those of you guys who have not done stand-ups or one-on-ones, it's okay, because you'll experience it when you are in the job as well. All right, the next one. I think this is a very good question. So I think it is from Mohit. He said that if we have worked for clients, most of them cannot show the code that they have worked for. So how do we then share it to you in a So how do we like portray their coding
like
capabilities?
obviously, so I think it sort of depends. Obviously, if it's completely private code that they don't even have a release for, not even on the App Store and so on, it seems unlikely for at least for projects. But then it is a tough one to sort of dig through. To be honest, it's quite hard, and I would recommend people that are in that position to do, let's say, a portfolio website, not something that necessarily needs to take forever to do. I mean, you can probably do that in 2-3 weeks time or so, especially if you're skilled, and just give us a general idea of what it is you're doing when you're working in other places, and it will be something that you can also bring along, even if you're not getting the job at Reflectly. It's something that other employers will like as well. So if you don't have like a showcasing project, I would say a portfolio website is a good choice for that. Then I would highly recommend doing it. And I don't think that's too much to ask for. I'm also against the idea of giving somebody like an unpaid task. Some companies do that to determine
Yeah.
people's skill level, but and of course you can pay for it as well, but it just seems a bit obtruse to go through that process. So I
Right.
would recommend that people that don't have anything to show for it, which is fine, I get that, to actually build out a portfolio project
Right.
with
Right.
Flutter, showcasing like how are they building the structure of the app, how are they doing navigation, how are they naming things, how are they commenting things, how are they, generally speaking, doing their work, and do they understand these good practices that are when you're building Flutter projects.
Right.
So yeah, might be a hard line kind of policy, but that is the honest truth. Like code is what gets you in the door.
Mm. So yeah, I mean, yeah, because a lot of people have been asking this question because it's some of them do what do you call that, clients work, and sometimes the clients have some NDA or agreement that they cannot show the code. So I agree that a portfolio will help, and I guess the process on how you build the app actually makes it better to evaluate your skills in terms of planning and also your execution. But at the same time, we also need to see the code as well. So I guess to also add on or to ask, so would a project that is that they built from scratch, would it be something that you guys also see, or is it better if the app itself, rather than being hosted on GitHub, is it better if the app has been released to the Android Play Store and Google App Store? Am I? Yeah.
I mean, as the current job description that we have describes, we do like that people have had release experience, but
Mm,
I mean, it's not strictly necessary. I think it's good.
right.
And if people have worked on projects that have been released to the app stores, also in other companies and other teams and other projects where they're unable to show the code, please do provide those references so that we can have a look at what is out there. That is a
Right.
better reference than no reference. The alternative is having somebody come in and be on a trial period for 3 months, but
Mm,
that could potentially be a waste of time for both parties.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
the the more validation we can do up front, the better it is for both parties. To be honest, this is
Mm-hmm.
just the honest truth. And I think anyhow it is healthy to have like side projects that you can sort of work on and try out new things, because internally in the companies and projects that you're working on, they might not you're not in control of those projects necessarily, so you can't try out new things. You can't like learn on the side. You can't just go say, now we want to try out the restoration manager thing that they
Mm,
introduced recently in Flutter. That-
right.
because they might not be using the right Flutter version, and they don't have resources or time to do that right now. So I think no matter how you look at it, it is to your own benefit to have something on the side that you're in control of, that you feel like you're building on as well. So like keep GitHub project where you also commit regularly, put in good comments, things like that. Maybe even follow PR flow where you review yourself. I think that's no matter how you look at it, it is a good decision and good time investment to make for yourself.
Yeah.
That is the truth.
Yeah. So I think you also added on like other skills other than code, like pull requests and whatnot. So there's another question that's leading to that. So the first question, I think it's already have been answered. Can someone with few projects under the belt be a good candidate? Obviously, yes. But what are some other tools that can be a good candidate uh, other than code? So what other skills do you also look out for other than Flutter or Dart?
So yeah, it's a little hard to tell if this is a technical thing or not, but at least surrounding the sort of process that goes into building a product, there's actually like a quite big need for, and there will probably always be a big need for people that are able to, take a, UI sketch and break it down into pieces and actually implement it.
Mm,
So, and there's a lot of
mm,
work in doing that, in putting it into issues, keeping track of them, not that you necessarily need to say that this will take exactly 4 weeks to do, but more so in managing the process surrounding that and, making it, understandable to others what you're currently working on is quite important as a remote team. Because you're
right.
not speaking daily about
Mm,
what are you working on right now. And so it becomes quite important to sort of always highlight the state of your work through these sort of workflows. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that we're always super great at breaking down these tickets into something that's manageable. Sometimes they do evolve into like massive scope creep and stuff like that. But
mm,
um, I think that that is a really good skill to have, to be able to, have some kind of UI sketch that you need to implement and then take it from one and break it down into smaller pieces and continuously, make deliverables for those changes. So yeah, those skills would be amazing to have on the team for sure, anytime.
right.
Um, if any, if anything, that makes you a better developer than the one who is not able to communicate what they're doing, even if they're good.
Right. Yeah. So I guess like breaking down the designs into, I would say, something that's easy to implement. And yeah, from experience as well, like putting design into code, sometimes the designers really create very visual, very amazing stuff. But sometimes it's a little bit hard to implement in Flutter as well, because Flutter is great, but it's not the perfect tool. So I do agree on that. And yeah, at the same time, like the other skills that I think I can add on is maybe if you are able to understand Git, because I guess Git is a very important thing, especially in any projects that you do in a company, because you probably have different Git workflows, right? So I think Git is pretty important. Would you agree on that?
I agree on it. I mean, these days it seems like GitHub is everything. You can't get around it. So yeah, I mean, but again, Git is also a very, very complicated thing underneath, and it's not
Mm,
necessarily the easiest thing to learn up front. But it is quite fundamental to what you're doing in your everyday work. I think the
right.
benefit of using something like GitHub is that they make it nicer to interact with Git. But
Mm,
it is a fundamental part of building a product that you have, source code under version control. You can go back, you can see who changed what. You can, quickly search for things that are being used elsewhere, or where these things being referenced, or do continuous integration and make sure that the changes are good or bad. Like that is quite important. It's part of the infrastructure and effort that you need to put in to give people a better product, but also developers a better experience of working at your company. So
right.
that is foundational to working at Reflectly. Like if you're, it's fine if you're not an expert on Git, but you need to have used it before and know how to use it. So,
Yeah.
or and, okay, there are obviously other version control systems, but Git is like the one that pretty much
The
everyone
main
uses.
one, right? Yeah, definitely. So I guess like yeah, some basic understanding of Git would be a minimum requirement, because if not, how are you going to work with other people? And then at the same time, like personal personally, I've never really explored Git that much, but I've used a tool called Git Kraken. Those Git visualizers. GitHub is an amazing one. They have a lot of features surrounding Git as well. And I guess from what I've picked up in this interview with you, do you think a little understanding of design will it help in terms of being a good candidate?
Absolutely. So, and I know you mentioned this earlier, but when the UI is handed over, we pretty much expect it to look that way when it goes out. Like it should be pretty much pixel perfect. And yeah, some things are harder to do in Flutter, but a lot of things are also comparatively easy to doing it in other languages
Yep.
and other platforms.
Right.
And the beauty of it is you only have to do it once. You don't have to, do it once on Android and once on iOS and once on the web and so on. So it's worth the investment, even if it requires you to do some very custom stuff underneath. That is like quite fundamental. That what is being handed over from design is also what ends up being in the actual code once it goes out, and looks like that on both platforms. So yeah, a good understanding for design, but also a good understanding of if you're unsure, like if the designs aren't clear to you, then you ask questions, like you inquire about them, and you I'm not sure about how this is supposed to be working, because sometimes the translation from static UI designs to dynamic UI
Yeah.
is not there yet, and that is there's a lot of animation, especially in Reflectly, and it's something that I imagine a lot of people are also going to be doing going forward, and doing that as a UI design is quite difficult and even harder to implement in code. So ask the questions before you spend a week doing the wrong kind of animation. That is, once again, the communication part. If you're unsure, there are other people that will know, or at least give you, the right guidance.
Right. Yeah. So I totally agree, because yeah, personally certain designs I'm like, okay, this is a little bit harder than it looks. But I would say like yeah, I think it's a good skill is really to ask questions like, or how does this design from this page transition to another page, for example, because sometimes I mean there might not be enough time to add in the animations through for example Figma or any other design tool that you use. So it's really good to ask questions. And I think compromisation, because sometimes the design might be a little bit too hard to implement, because certain things might be difficult in Flutter. I think uh,
Absolutely.
compromisation yeah.
It,
So
like we do compromise on things that are seemingly impossible, but we also do invest in things that are seemingly impossible, but just take a long time to do. So
yeah.
I think at least for that kind of work, it's a question about being persistent. And obviously, if it is really impossible, we will not do it. But I think Flutter is a great framework for pushing the boundaries. Like it's you can actually deal with pixels individually if you want to.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's not super difficult to get down there, and you don't need to do some kind of OpenGL stuff or something like that. You can fundamentally just use the Flutter framework to do it. It's just not boxy widgets. It's you need to
Yeah.
do math, and you need to fiddle around with it a lot.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think if it is a core piece of the UI that will make it absolutely amazing, which I think is a big part of Reflectly's success, it is something that we're willing to invest in. Also, long-term investments in terms of time. We don't expect things to fit into boxes everywhere.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree on that. Yeah, so certain like features are fundamental, or the ones that really makes the app the app itself, so like I think back then I was playing around with waves. Back then Flutter was very new, so there was no tutorial on waves, so I had to figure out how to create waves in Flutter. And like you have no idea like how Flutter developers now have so many packages like to just put in and then that's it. Back then I had to learn Bezier curves to understand how the curves work and how the
Yeah.
animation works. So a lot of
But
things
now you know.
yeah, exactly. Now, yeah, but pros and cons. Like I now know how to create certain shapes and sizes and how you can interact with them as well. So it just comes with experience and a lot of like you say, persistence, because there might not be a tutorial out there to what you have want to implement, but you just have to push it no matter what you say. Just okay, I'm gonna solve it. If you are stressed, I think another tip for all of us is that if you're stressed, just take a break. Yeah,
Oh yeah, for sure. Like that is necessary. Don't get caught up in it. That's like eventually will tear your apart emotionally. To be honest, like so. Once you
yeah,
get to that
yeah,
point, take a break, go somewhere else.
right.
Have a
Use
decent talk or
Reflectly
whatever.
app, journal down what's the
Keep that in mind,
problem.
man. It's a good idea. Not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So yeah, so I do agree that sometimes due to whatever circumstance, it might be experience, it might be the complexity of the design. It takes some time for it to be implemented, so it really depends, but I think eventually we are able to push out the feature that is needed for the app itself. So I think that's all for these questions, and thank you guys for asking a lot of joining us in this live stream, asking questions as well. So hopefully I can answer some of them in the comments down below. Before we end this live stream, Daniel, do you have any like anything to add on to anyone who is looking for a Flutter developer job?
well, apply. See if you make it.
Dis-
I mean, we'd like to get in touch with as many people as possible, and even if we don't have a spot for you right now, there might be one in the future. So definitely get in touch no matter what. Um,
Right. So I'll probably link your the job portal that you guys have in Reflectly in the link in the description. I'll probably also put in the Google form that I've created for Daniel as well. So thank you guys for joining. Happy it's Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year. So enjoy the long weekend for you guys who are celebrating it. And that's about it. Bye bye. I'm gonna end this podcast.